Hi everybody, Luke Filmboss here. In anticipation of the Disney Plus release of Disney's Mulan, I am reviewing all of the live-action Disney reimaginings. Today I will be reviewing 101 Dalmatians 1996. 101 Dalmatians is a movie that is entirely for the dogs. You might think that I mean that as a negative thing, but in this case, that's actually a positive thing. 101 Dalmatians is a dog movie with dog characters, and it creates good characters out of the Dalmatians. It does this by making the Dalmatians clever and self-aware of what's going on around them in a very silly way, but in a way that's also realistic. And I like how they do it without giving the dogs their own voice. The dogs are just regular dogs who don't speak like in some other dog movies that you might find. And I think that kept this movie realistic and charming and enjoyable at the same time, while not leaning too far into the silliness of dogs having a personality. While the dog characters in this movie are great, I sadly cannot say the same for the human characters. Roger and Anita were vague, shallow, forgettable characters. While they did have some good moments and story elements, like the fact that Anita was one of Cruella's top designers and that Roger is a failing video game maker, which I thought had relevance to the time period that the movie was made, overall their characters fall flat. And there's a memorable scene with them where they're being dragged by their dogs on their bikes and they both wind up in a lake. But overall, that was more of the dog scene than it was theirs. And so once again, the human characters in this movie fell flat and the movie suffers for it a little bit. Roger and Anita were the tip of the iceberg as far as forgettable human characters in this movie. Their maid really has not much to do in the story. Jasper and Horace are kind of memorable, but they seem like a cheap ripoff of the villains from Home Alone, and they're honestly a little bit too undeveloped as characters to really care about them in the movie. And the Skinner character had potential, but they didn't really use him in the movie almost at all. He had like 2 scenes and they were both very short. And so they had a lot of missed potential on him where he could have been a good character. But once again, everything from the human character perspective was a failure in this movie. Or was it? One thing that this movie does excellently is Glenn Close as Cruella de Vil. Cruella de Vil is a nasty yet likable villain who has good motivations. She is so concerned with style and the look of everything, especially her own look, that she doesn't care about money. She's willing to risk and give up millions of dollars so that everything looks the way she wants it to. She has a very inconsiderate and sick sense of humor that really only she finds funny, and that adds layers to her. She also likes to belittle people. Especially, I like the interaction that she has with Rogers where she tries to make him feel insignificant because of his career job, saying that video games are just pointless, loud, noisy nonsense, and she uses that to try to belittle him, like she does with all the other characters in other ways. And she also likes to blame other people for her problems, and it's an unlikable quality, but yet Glenn Close brings it out as Cruella de Vil as an interesting villain. And Cruella she's one of the better Disney villains from the animation, and brought to the live action, she was done very well. I'm just going to touch on the music real briefly. It wasn't memorable, but yet I was able to feel the mood in each scene through the music. They know how to start each scene right with the music, knowing what kind of a scene, whether it's an evil scene, a fun-filled, lighthearted dog scene. And overall, the music just embodies and inhabits the scenes so that it just flows right and you don't really notice the music is there during the scenes, but yet it still adds something to the movie. I remember watching this movie as a kid and comparing it to Home Alone, And I still feel that way about this movie. There are a lot of shades of Home Alone in this movie, but that doesn't mean it handles it well. I did not like what they did with Jasper and Horace with their Home Alone-ish parody. None of it felt earned. You just have Jasper falling through a broken floor and Horace slipping on naturally made ice and falling into a freezing water. None of it felt earned, and it wasn't authentic or clever. However, I did like what they did with Cruella de Vil and her Home Alone-ish parody. I liked how she was lured in by the animals into each semi-trap where she has like a pig fall on her. She gets led and dropped into a big tank of sticky tar, and where she's getting catapulted by long wooden beams by the horse. And all of her moments of getting beat up by these animals all felt authentic and clever the way they did it. So I did like her sense of the Home Alone style. This movie missed out with a powerful propaganda story about animal cruelty. From the beginning, I thought they were setting up something about it with a news report that was going on in the TV, and then setting up the Skinner as this character who was injured and lost his voice because of animals in the past, and so now he's killing animals and skinning them and making them into coats and other clothing objects. But they didn't go anywhere with this. They could have done a potentially powerful story about animal cruelty because humans are so attached to their pets. And so by showing animal cruelty to pets, it really would have worked. But they didn't go anywhere with it. They went more with the Home Alone childish movie storyline. And the movie suffers for it because this could have been a serious adult yet still family film. And they didn't. They missed a huge potential in this movie. Continuing with the previous thought, this movie has some serious tonal struggles. For the most part, it is the G-rated dog lover movie that plays to kids and the silliness of it. But then it has the elements that you think that they're going to do a serious story with it, especially, once again, with the Skinner, and even with Cruella at some points, but they don't go anywhere with it. And so this movie has a little bit of a struggle between being a serious propaganda film and then it just goes full into childish silliness, which wasn't a bad thing. But if it were made in today's day and age, had this been a movie released, it would not have sold well because people aren't into the silliness in live action movies anymore like they were at the time. And so this movie was a gem within the dog movie phase, with movies like Air Bud and Homeward Bound and some other very cheesy movies that were focused on dogs. This movie rises above them, even if not completely in quality, but just in enjoyability, and the fact that it knows how to be a good dog lover film, but it didn't know how to be a good or great film in general. And so this movie was good for the time, but it has not aged well. So overall, this movie is an enjoyable film that fell flat, especially compared to its potential. With those closing thoughts, it's time to give 101 Dalmatians 1996 an overall score. For quality, I give this film a 50%. It had some tonal struggles. It had very forgettable and shallow human characters. Some of the moments didn't seem earned in it, and it can get a little bit too silly at times, and it wastes a lot of good story potential. On the entertainment factor, however, I think this movie deserves a 70% for enjoyment. It was a very fun dog movie that knew how to do a dog movie that was silly and fun, but yet entertaining at the same time, that it doesn't get too silly that it's stupid. And Cruella de Vil as the villain was great, and so she gives this movie a watchability, and the music, while not memorable, helps the movie flow very well at a good pace. Overall, the movie gets a 60%, and it's not a good movie overall. It's enjoyable, but not particularly good. Thanks everybody for watching my movie review. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and hit the notification bell to help you be on the lookout for more videos from Luke Film Boss.